The world has gone nuts, right? The penguins are not going to pay the tariffs. That's all we need to say. I mean, those little winged devils peeing on all those glaciers, making up half the ice in Antarctica. Why would they think that they could be bullied by mere money, right? They've got the sea, they've got their ice, they've got, escape from the seals. No way on earth are the penguins going to pay the tariffs. Or anybody else, apparently. And the whole world's come to an end. Trump has overplayed his hand. He doesn't have all the cards. We have no slides tonight because I have spent all week trying to make slides for other classes. So we're here tonight, improv night on the Mosaic Ark with virtual penguins. Welcome. The penguins. Okay, we see Daydreamer, thank you for being in the chat. Is this loud enough? I mean, I am looking at my audio input and it's going up into the yellow, right? If I turn it up any higher and the volume, it's going to go into the red. And won't that deafen everybody? The world has gone nuts.
We're on edge.
We're a bit on edge. We're all
with the penguins.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
On the ice
I wanted to do a stack of memes of the penguins. You guys are just going to have to imagine them. The penguins have been in negotiation at the White House. The penguins have, had meetings about the krill economy. The penguins
krill
have refused to pay the tariffs. We might as well just talk about the penguins. Maybe Danny DeVito. I don't know. Feed him fish.
Rather talk about our penguins. Penguins sitting on their hoard of jewels in a cave somewhere.
Well, I would say, guys, we told you so. Right? We wrote, hey, I don't have any slides, but I got books, right?
Which thing did we tell them?
Yeah, we could just do story time
tonight,
right?
Yeah.
And we described, we are certain that we have, how every movie that you thought was fiction turns into documentary now? There it is. The Penguin City. This is
we called it.
Yes, we called it. The McDonald's. What is it? The Herman and no, it's something. Hammond and McDonald. What's
like that? Yeah,
it's something like that. Clearly, we didn't know that was the name of the island, but there they are in their ice city with gates of pearl. We should describe. We should read to find out what the So here we are. We made it up the ice, Yan Yuan gasped. Good thing we had that rope around your tum. Remember, they're bears, right? Oh yes, and to say that they've gone. Here they are in the previous moment, hitting up against the ice wall, the great ice wall, with the penguins at the very top. Penguins at the top, right? And so to get up, they had to do like a Princess Bride, sort of haul the bears up the cliffs of despair, right?
Oh, I forgot about that scene. It's been a while since I've seen that.
We're nothing but references, right?
Yeah.
The bears looked back over the icy chasm. One wrong step, said Ivan, and we'd be done. The guards intoned, "You've passed the first examen. The other trials are not so much fun." The bears looked at each other out of breath. What trials could be much worse than cheating death? I think our scansion has definitely improved. We promise you,
It has improved.
and
Yeah.
you know, I'm not sure our rhymes are any better. These are fine. The Pringans trilled. Okay, so I spent the weekend with a migraine,
Oh,
and under the circumstances of having a migraine, and Milo's, please pray for Troy that he goes home finally, right? They found him, they've seen him. He's wandering around in Las Felices or whatever, LA. They've staked out Helen, I think, to cry for him. So maybe he'll
oh,
come back. Right.
poor
Anyway,
cat and poor Milo. I don't know who I feel worse for because I've lost pets before for months on end, but they did come home, Milo. So keep
yeah,
praying.
yeah, keep
They did come
praying. A
home.
lot of people are praying for this cat to come back, but he's out having a good old time. And I think he
He's
might get.
probably getting fed by a lot of people. I would think
Well, okay,
people like to do that
so
if
my
they're
mother
physically
in her
home.
town, for sure, right? She feeds 4 cats, but they get fed everywhere else too.
They're fat, right?
Yeah, no. And
They
there's like
waddle.
whole economies, cat economies. Never mind the penguins. There's whole cat
Cat
economies
Mm.
relying on the old ladies who feed them and make, heated houses for them and everything from, up and down the block, right? We figure
Yeah.
Troy has found a sugar mama who's
My father-in-law, God rest his soul, used to keep little dog treats by his front door because the neighbor's dog would come over and just scratch at the door and get his treat and then trot back home, every day, a couple of times a day.
See, okay, see, so this actually somehow we're going to find a topic here. The animals have their own economy, and Trump is trying to get inside that, right? That we know tariffs on the kitty treats, right? That we
Yeah.
should tariff Troy's kitty treats, so maybe he'll come home.
Those penguins are holding out. They're holding out on us.
Oh, they do. Well, we have the proof here in our documents, right? We have
We
the
do.
documents. We have the documents. They're here. Anyway, because I was worried about Milo and his cat being missed, I of course had to watch Ace Ventura: Pet Detective.
I forgot there was a second one. I need to watch the second one too.
Okay, so all of this is going to be completely topical, and we are improving this because I've spent all week prepping for class, and therefore you have no notes on me and no slides. But so just imagine, right? Okay, so the first Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, I'm surprised it still shows on Prime because the ending is a little edgy.
Oh yeah.
If you
It
don't
didn't.
remember, we're not telling you.
Oh, that
Sean
was a
Young
very
has
fun
a
part.
has a challenging part there for a
Yeah.
bit.
It's
Anyway,
the crying game redux.
and there's fish involved because it's a dolphin, right? Because it's for the Miami Dolphins, right? I'm watching this and thinking, oh wow. So I did this. I keep wanting to watch stuff that's set in LA, right? And learning more about LA because it's the city of Our Lady of the Angels, Queen of the Angels. Anyway, and I'm looking at the mansion from the first Ace Ventura where they go and he's looking at the fish or something. I don't know. Anyway, and I look it up and it's like that's in Florida. Why did they go all
Yeah.
the way to Florida to film this? It's set in LA, isn't it?
Oh
No.
no. Okay. That matches the comment I just left Fat on in the Dragon Common Room about the Superman movie.
Yes, yes. I'm like, why did they go all the way to Florida to film Ace Ventura?
The dolphins are from Florida. We're having our blonde moments today, both of us.
Oh, very much so. Yes, I finally embraced the fact that I am, in fact, my coloring, although I still think of myself as a brunette because I was until like 20 years ago. And for 20 years, I've been this color, right? And it's like, no, you're blonde. So wear the pink and the blue and, maybe embrace the blondness.
Yes.
The previous weekend, I was watching all the Legally Blondes. Anyway, the second Ace Ventura, we will go into intense detail on in a minute. Okay. Okay. Oh, look, here we've got Daydreamer and Boston. They're checking the audio. I think the issue is more distance from the mic. Okay, so maybe if
Oh,
I
you
move
just
my
got much
chair
louder there.
closer.
Oh, you did.
I need to like talk at the mic. Okay, let me.
Yeah.
Oh golly. Okay, let's see. But it ruins my. Okay, this is all tech testing and how's that? Is that better? But then I have this long line of things in my sight line. That's
Oh, you can
hideous.
barely see it. Oh, you can barely see it.
I, you can barely see it. The world can see it. It's like my hands out there, right?
They look enormous when you do that.
Yes, and so does the mic. You see how well we keep in the plane otherwise? Um,
We
yes,
really
much
have been
better.
doing this for
Scoot
2
up.
years.
Oh, phooey. Okay. At times,
Just not gonna do
professors
that.
find another bit quiet. Okay. Yes. Thank you. Okay. So we've solved the mic problem. It's that I have to have it in my face. I don't want to be one of those streamers that sits sitting right next to the mic and talking to the mic and never having
You're very
any,
serious.
well, okay. So
Because
your
it's
guy,
covering your face. Mysterious.
hmm, I can hide behind my pop filter. But okay. So of all of the things that the media is doing to us, is this fine, guys? You can tell me. Robert, I've thought for years the audio was slightly low. Hey, you've been listening to us for years, so I'm happy to hear that.
Nice.
Okay. Well, yes, it must be. I just need to, the thing is, okay, so if I'm reading my audio input, it's exactly the same as it was before. So why does the OBS think I'm louder? Are you the
I
same?
don't
And you
know.
guys think I'm louder?
It's a definite difference though when you scoot it in. Maybe if you scoot it in an inch, not all the way up towards it, but just a tiny bit.
Well, now they're happy and they want to hear my voice. They want to hear the story. Can I whisper now that that they so again, I like one day some guys, you got to help us like get big enough that we can afford like some tech like help,
Yeah,
right?
I can get rid of my old Beats and get some
Right.
actual real equipment. That'd be good.
Well,
Hey, it works.
engineers who actually know how to do like the fancy voice filters on everything so that all the men sound like, they're deep baritone, bass.
Ooh, I want to sound like Kathleen Turner. Can I sound like Kathleen Turner?
Yes, if you have the right sound engineer,
I like my
they'll
voice.
modulate they'll take off the top, screechy bits out and they'll poof up they can do all sorts of it's like photoshopping for your voice.
Cool.
Yeah.
I
So
did think of
we can dream. We can dream. I've got cables now doing weird things around me. Okay. Um what are they saying now? It's better with you scooted up for sure. Okay. All right. All right. The fans win. What was I talking about?
we're talking about penguin hordes
Yes.
and caves in Antarctica.
Watching Jim Carrey for a whole weekend means you want to do all sorts of Calvin-y things with your face. I
He
so
doesn't have a rubber face.
well, he claims to have started practicing when he was 10, right? And
I can believe it.
making his career out of making funny faces. Oh, there was a penguin movie. That's what I was thinking. One of the Jim Carrey movies I watched was Mr. Popper's Penguins. So
Oh,
this was clearly, I mean, the tariff thing hadn't come out yet, right? So it was clearly a foreshadowing of suddenly the entire world is talking about nothing but penguins for the week. But the Mr. Popper's Penguins it's about 10, 12 years ago, 2012 maybe.
I remember this. I didn't see it, but I remember the title. Yeah.
And it's a lot of animated penguins. I did start looking up, the tech stuff on what it took to animate these penguins because I'm like, wow, those are really responsive penguins. I'm like, wait a minute, they're not real.
Real.
Although apparently they did like film penguins to watch them, just as we carefully researched our penguins for our Penguin City.
We did.
But he gets 6 of them, and they of course take over his house for a bit. They get kidnapped by the zoo. They have to rescue them from the zoo. And it turns out that it's all about saving the Tavern on the Green owned by Angela Lansbury.
That makes total sense.
Yeah. It was actually about saving his family. I suddenly realized that, Jim Carrey, crazy as he may have become over Trump, which seems to be like the world, the world pastime right now, is actually sound on a variety of things, including child vaccines. He was
Yes.
actually out there protesting against them some time ago.
Well, he was dating. What is her name? Um, she's an actress. He has a son who got autistic after vaccines. He got a badly
Ah.
regressive autism after vaccines, and
Well, good for him. Because he's
yeah, and
gone through
so
a
he
fair
was
number
helping
of
her.
wives and girlfriends too. I looked it
Yeah,
all up while I was watching.
I can't. It's driving me crazy that I can't remember her name right now.
Well, he's
She
been
has a.
married a couple times and he has a couple
Well, they weren't
partners.
married.
Right. So
Yeah, they
he's
weren't
had some
married.
children with I lost track of everything because I was not going to do the full like, fangirl deep dive thing, but I was looking at some so that he was he made some, and I mean, one, he seems to do these animal movies, right? The Ace Ventura ones are clearly animal the in the second one
Yeah.
when he's on a safari thing, and the best scene is when he's taken into the evil bad guy. Simon Callow takes him into the room of all the heads, and he's like, "Oh, how wonderful for you have a room of death!"
Death.
So I had enjoyed Jim Carrey in the past, and now I'm happy to find out that crazy as he might have been on the Trump side of things, he has been on the right side of other issues. So
It was Jenny McCarthy. I just remembered her name.
okay,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
she had a child who was injured
She had a child who was injured. The child's father. I think the father ended the marriage after that. Um,
because of the injury.
I don't know,
Mm.
but it's a lot of stress because it's regressive autism. It's not just he's
Oh,
going to be super smart. It's like he regressed.
oh
And I
man.
think that she has been finding ways over the years to help him heal from this. And so she's
Okay.
been very outspoken about this. And Hollywood canceled her because Hollywood's enthralled to pharmaceutical companies
Mm-hmm.
and their money, just like anybody else, and the government. But that's too long and intricate a topic for tonight. But
Well, I mean,
she
we
didn't
promised to
respond
go
over it.
absolutely everywhere and just be upside down improv tonight because I had no time to prepare. But so I think anything's on topic, which is fair enough. But I mean
Mhm.
that makes it even better on Carrie's part that he stood up against that in the moment that he did, because it was before now. It was some
Right.
years ago. It was like a decade ago
Yeah.
that he started being really vocal about it. So good for him.
Hmm.
Um, Oh, and I really watched a lot. I did the two Ace Ventura ones, and the next day I still had the headache. So I watched Liar Liar and the Popper's Penguins, and both of those are about a father getting back with his the mother of his children and his kids. I mean,
You
I
mentioned
was
that.
like, by the end of it, I was like, wow, he does wholesome movies. Who knew?
Yeah, I think my favorite one of his is the Truman Show. That is just
Yeah, I've seen. I mean, that one is people have referenced that because it's like we're in it,
yeah, yeah. You're in a simulation. It feels like a simulation
right?
because everything is scripted, but you're supposed to pretend that it's not,
Right.
and everybody around him is doing this. So I think people relate to it because of that.
And it's well done. But I hadn't
Mhm.
seen I hadn't seen Liar Liar and hadn't seen the Penguins one. And the two of them that I was able to find in his, repertoire were about a dad who had been, not I think in the Liar Liar he's a lawyer, and in the
Yeah,
Mr. Popper's Penguins he's a big real estate broker. And that's how they end up negotiating around the Tavern on the Green that Angela Lansbury character owns. And it turns out that's where he had just to go with his dad, who was constantly traveling around, which is how he ends up with the penguins, because his dad is always traveling and sending him stuff. And for his last gift, he sends a penguin, which then multiplies. Never mind. Anyway, there's a set of penguins, right? And it's through the penguins that the Jim Carrey character reconnects with his kids, and then with his ex-wife, and it all ends happily ever after with the penguins. And they take the penguins to Antarctica, and they get to they buy the I'm sorry, it's all spoiler alerts. But the thing is, it had happy endings, right?
yeah.
Through and so I was surprised, right? Because I had dismissed Jim Carrey when I found out about the big anti-Trump thing he did in 2019, and I said, "Oh, forget it.
Oh,
He's just as crazy as the rest of them."
I don't think Trump drove him crazy. I think he was already there. I
Oh,
just think it
probably,
found
but
expression through that because that's what Hollywood was rewarding at the time.
that's why I'm
And
surprised that he was doing not just the Ace Ventura movies, but these family reconnecting movies, right? It's like, it's
yeah.
virtuous. Who does that? Right? That he's doing virtuous movies and standing up against the vaccine injuries. Wow.
Hmm.
right? He didn't have to do either of those things because Hollywood doesn't tend to reward either of them.
Yeah, it's I wonder how many of family friendly movies are getting made now. I don't think are any of them. I don't really know. I don't think they are.
Well, so I mean, like we've done the Johnny Depp series. One day maybe so we always end up in pop culture because it's easy to talk about and remember the stories. But a lot of Johnny
Mhm.
Depp's movies are father search memories. Or the Pirates of the Caribbean is all about finding your father over and over and
Yes.
over again.
Yes.
Um,
It is. It's
The
the same
Alice in
story.
Wonderland, the second one, particularly the Mad Hatter has to find his father.
Mhm.
So Depp has done a number that are reconnecting with dads. I mean, and again, that like this sneak him in, sneak this stuff in under the radar when, otherwise Hollywood is doing nothing but, making fun of men. That these somehow these character actors are doing stories that are about reconciling with your father.
That is interesting. Hmm. I think the people making these stories, well, I don't know for certain, but certainly when I was growing up, I'm 57 years old. There were a lot of my classmates that were children of divorce. So
Right.
as they grow up and they enter Hollywood's system and they eventually get into positions of influence, then they're finding these stories that really resonate with them.
Mm-hmm.
It's the parent trap. My parents get back together, or if my dad's come back, and it's kind of poignant. It must be very cathartic for a lot of people
Well, it
to
certainly
watch.
works for me. I wish my dad had come
Yeah,
back. Right.
yeah.
And he did
Well,
after my stepmother left him. So,
um,
this kind of stuff
well,
comes to
it.
bite you in the butt, right?
I think it just the even the presentation to people. Maybe I'm not a child of divorce, and I knew plenty of people who also weren't. I think these stories just resonate with everybody because everybody wants a happy ending
Right.
for everyone, for their families, for their friends, for themselves, and I don't know why they're not making more of those. It does make you wonder if it's some kind of a conspiracy to make people unhappy because unhappy people buy things,
Mm.
you know.
Well,
Um,
so it's astonishing to me that there are any, right? And then to find out, certain of the people that have been, I mean, Carrie, I mean, famously did this visualization thing about writing himself a check for $10 million, and then he got
yeah,
paid that. I'm like,
yeah.
I wish I could visualize that well, right?
It doesn't work for me. I keep trying to hit the lottery. It just hasn't worked yet.
Well, I mean, we're actually more strongly visualizing something else, right? Like having a great live
Yeah.
stream and and a dedicated audience. Thank you guys. Um, that I so it was striking to me that these guys move their movies actually overturn. I mean, they get back together. They're in both of them, both Liar Liar and the Penguins one. The ex-wife is with somebody else or dating or about to go off, and and she has to make a conscious decision to turn back and come back to him,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
does, right? And I'm like,
And even the
yeah,
Truman, yeah, even the Truman Show, he's kind of coerced into this very unhappy marriage because they're all actors.
right.
Only what motivates him to finally leave his little matrix is actual real love that he remembers this one woman. He just can't get her out of his mind.
Mm,
And that's actually what's motivating him. And it's mutual because she tried to save him. She tried to get him out. So even though there wasn't a real marriage there, there was going to be. You can easily imagine that because it was a happy ending because he did leave, and then she
okay.
did run to meet him as he left it.
Well,
So
my goodness, Mr. Carey has a heart. He may not be the Grinch after
well,
all.
the writers do.
Well, no, come on. They have to sign the people for the movies, right? And the actors
Yeah,
have to
he's
agree to
he's a,
do
he's
them.
he's a very good actor. He is. I've seen his dramas as well as his comedies.
Yeah.
He's an underrated dramatic actor for sure. If you ever watch Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, you can not
Mm.
conclude anything else other than the guy's brilliant. He is.
Well, so I'd say, these guys like him that can command the salaries or the whatever, the payouts. I mean, that I did see an interesting article about how Hollywood, actually what there's an accounting swindle in all of these things where they every movie that they make, where this is why Snow White, who cares, right? Because they incorporate the property and so
Mhm.
it loses the money, and it doesn't actually redound on the parent company. And so the argument being something like the Lord of the Rings and a few others, Harry Potter and stuff, they all actually lost money, but
Hmm.
that's what the plan is. I mean, it's like, okay, the accountants are really having fun here, but they, somehow they have to, persuade these actors to take these roles. And I do think, the actors get to say yes or no. I mean, it's like, it's interesting.
They do.
We're taught to believe that they're all, coerced by, blackmail into doing all this sorts of stuff. So how do they end up doing a good movie, like a virtuous movie? It's like, it blew my mind. Talk about, we promised in the ad for this, it's like, we're going to, destroy your expectations. Like this did. I was sitting there watching these several movies in a row where this, crazy character actor is taking the side of virtue. Redemption
Mm,
arc, right?
yeah,
Several in a row. I couldn't believe it.
yeah. I mean, he also did the Grinch though, which was just kind of creepy.
I didn't like the Grinch if I saw
Oh,
it.
it was
But the
not
point of the Grinch
good.
is his art grows, right? Isn't it? Doesn't he end up, I mean, technically he ends up with a redemption
That
arc.
story, yeah, it's just that no, the story itself has a redemption arc. It's, I mean, it was, well, they put a lot of kind of adult jokes in there that the kids
Mm,
wouldn't actually get, but if you're sitting there watching it with a kid, you'd get really creeped out,
mm,
right? Like a key
mm.
exchange at a party, that kind of thing. Like, we don't know who the father is, that type of thing, because it was one of those parties. It's just not good. But
I mean,
again, I don't blame the.
now make some more Jim Carrey face.
I know, it's like,
Ugh,
yeah,
ugh.
yeah. But I mean, that's not the actor's fault. I mean, they do sign contracts to do a certain number of films, I think,
Mm.
for different studios. Um, I don't know what kind of refusal they have to do them, but I really place more of the blame or the praise on the writers and the producers and the directors than I do the actors.
Well, we know to definitely praise the writers on Pirates of the Caribbean because they snuck a lot of
Oh
great stuff in there,
gosh, they were,
right?
yeah, it's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
I see something historically accurate wrapped in a fantastically like whimsical and entertaining story. And every time I watch it, it just gets better.
Hmm.
Like the entire series.
Yeah, we need to do a proper revisit the pirate scene as well. I
Oh
mean, the
yeah.
penguins are not going to pay those tariffs, so clearly we're going to have to like capture the island. So Mel is saying Jim Carrey also did Bruce Almighty, which was a Noatic story. I mean, so
Oh yes.
is
Yeah.
that good or
That
bad,
was.
Mel? Is Noatic good or bad?
Oh,
Boston
it was. Sorry, you go ahead.
VA Boston says Scorsese seems to do just what he wants. For instance, he can get funding for huge budget films, big budget films that don't inherently condemn the church. He can make a documentary series on some of the saints.
Well, Scorsese's, you're going to get a Scorsese movie. He's very good,
Hmm.
but he tends to make the same types of stories,
Yeah.
right? About or at least stories about the same types of people and the same types of elements of a particular society section of society. So people like those stories. So yeah, he's going to keep getting
He
getting
gets to
money
keep
to do
doing that.
them. Yeah.
There was something I saw, talk about overturning expectations, right? There was some movie I saw recently that managed not to insult the church, and I was staggered. Do you remember which one it was? Because I think I
But that
mentioned I was
one that you were
talking about
talking,
it
do
some time ago, right?
you
And
remember what it was about?
no,
Basically,
I just remember the sensation of, oh my gosh. It's
oh,
like
you didn't say
we
something horrible.
we
How did
managed to
this
get, we
happen?
managed to have the church there as a positive force, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so somewhat, I mean, interestingly, like the Sister Act movies, I know Whoopi Goldberg is nuts, but the character in that movie is actually pretty virtuous, and they don't make fun of the nuns.
Yeah, I didn't actually watch those movies. It just
Mm,
didn't look appealing to me, but I do remember seeing one scene clip of it that was pretty funny that some might take as an insult, right?
right.
Because one nun says, "Well, who would want to hurt the church or the nuns?" She says, "Yeah, are they Catholics?" Right?
Okay, so
Do they go to a
there's
Catholic
the
school?
Blues Brothers penguins. We got nuns in the conversation now too, right?
Yes,
So
yeah,
we've
the
got Mr.
penguins.
Popper's
The
penguins
penguin.
and the penguins of the
No, the penguin of the Blues Brothers has got to be my favorite. non-depiction. I absolutely love that because they're just insulting her and then she's smacking him with a ruler and it's hilarious.
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
but the thing is, they absolutely adore her. She's really mean, but she's their mom. You know, they grew up in an orphanage and they would do
Right.
anything for her. And that's the start of the movie. And I would say that's a positive depiction, even though they were. It's kind of like making fun of their own family.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you know, like if you're at a family dinner or something, people are just kind of good naturedly making fun of you, but she was having none of it. No pun intended. But yeah, they called her the penguin, and she kind of looked like one. I was like, oh yeah, I get
Well,
that.
I was thinking
About the
for
time
the
that movie
episode
came
if
out, I
I'd
saw.
had time to put it, it's like just a stack of the penguin memes and stuff like that, and it's like
Yeah,
the whole
we had
premise
no
because
time.
well, no, I that one of the things we're still thinking about is the civility, right? And some of the fun penguin jokes I've seen is like we've all been dressing like penguins, and what was the joke? It's like it's actually
Oh,
it's
it
never
was the
mind.
tuxedos.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
tuxedo. It's all the tuxedos, and it's never mind the lizard people. It's been the penguins all along.
it's all along, right?
that they, that they've been
There
ruling
are
everything from
overlords.
yes the penguin overlords.
This is why everybody goes to Antarctica.
Well, I mean, I have not checked in on Owen's take on the penguin tariffs. But we were curious for a while, like what is going on down there in Antarctica, and that island, this penguin island that's going to have tariffs on it, is pretty close to Antarctica. So clearly, there's some kind of secret shipping thing going on
Oh,
there that
no,
needs access to that island,
it's
penguins and
gonna be
all.
it's gonna be some Doug Adams thing where the penguins are actually super, geniuses that have been running the world and we're their slaves, like the mice in
The mice,
Hitchhiker's Guide
yes,
to the
yes. It's
Galaxy.
the penguins are actually
Actually,
well. So
penguins.
we did. Now it's going to be bugging me. Okay, so we've got other movies. Mel saying Bruce Nolan's Jim Carrey career in TV has been stalled for a while, and when he's passed over for a coveted anchorman position, he loses it, complaining that God is treating him poorly. Soon
Oh
after,
yeah,
God,
that's a
Morgan
good. Yeah,
Freeman, actually contacts Bruce and offers him all of his powers if he thinks he can do a better job. Yeah, that's a funny scene where he's trying to answer all the prayers.
yeah, yeah.
Bruce accepts and goes on a spree using his newfound abilities for selfish personal use, until he realizes that the prayers of the world are going unanswered. Right, and then he tries to answer them, which is
He just says yes to everybody. Chaos ensues.
right.
Yeah,
Okay, I may have to like keep going. I was gonna watch The Mask. I think I remember watching The Mask because we've thought about masks a lot and stuff. And I did. I
yeah.
I was thinking. As I remembered, that one was kind of dark, so I didn't want to go there.
It
But
was well, it was a little dark because the bad guy was really bad. He was really scary bad, but
The
it was
Mask
mostly
is the good guy,
fun.
right?
Yeah, the mask is the good guy, but he
Okay.
was yeah. Whoever puts on the mask takes on its powers. So when the bad guy gets a hold of it, he turns very frightening.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I have masks I think about a lot, both as the sort of trance practice improv. If we're doing improv tonight, right? In Keith Johnston's
Hmm.
improv book, there's a really interesting mask exercise that I have used in a class once to sort of think about what's like we were talking about personification allegory, right? If you put on this mask of this character, what does it show you? And the
Yeah.
the mask exercise in this improv thing is they put the masks on, look at themselves very quickly in a mirror, and then let the masks tell them what to do. I mean, so that movie, the Mask movie, is playing off of something that my students actually experienced when they did these masks, right? It's a real improv experience to
Huh.
you put particularly the half masks that just cover your nose. And so this is
Hmm.
this is interesting, like with the COVID mask is covering your mouth, right? So
Yeah.
see, I've gone so quiet again. Um, Covering your mouth, whereas the if a mask it just covers your eyes and leaves your mouth active, those are kind of mischief masks, right? Whereas the full
Hmm.
masks end up being very like um stiff, and they tend to have different personalities. The improv actors find they have different personalities.
Interesting.
Like
Hmm.
it actually works, right?
Yeah. It's like giving yourself permission to be completely somebody else because your face is covered.
It's an interesting phenomenon, I think. So I actually have masks are in Johnson book. He also talks about how masks are used in a lot of you know trance religious practices that they'll be, use them in dances, and I mean it's voodoo, it's this and that and the other, but and
Yeah.
we're thinking about the masks for the
Yeah,
carnival.
the masks
know.
are an expression of their personality rather than covering it up and making them become something else. So it's a bit different than the improv exercise you just described, right?
Well, it's challenging, right? Because the improv exercise, the actors would say, according to Johnson, they said, like they've learned that the different masks had stable characteristics, regardless of who was wearing them.
That's kind of freaky. That would kind of freak me out. It's too much like possession.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and
Ugh.
spiritual masks are said to have those powers, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
thinking of, I guess, the Kachina masks in the Hopi.
Mm.
Um, cultures that have used masks for this kind of spiritual drama stuff, Greek, right? The tragic.
And they're always scary looking. Even the tragedy mask looks scary. The face looks contorted in pain,
Mm-hmm.
which is always kind of creepy.
Well, I say the comedy masks are creepy too. So that's, I mean,
It
Carrie
is.
as I mean, that he do his rubber face stuff, right? Is
Mm-hmm.
all, it's, I mean, to a certain extent, it's a kind of physical mask of, I mean, it's
Yeah.
exaggerated emotion, but it's all masking him, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you do that level of face. Mel's still giving more detail. Eyes Wide Shut, the Ultimate Mask movie. Yeah, yeah, that
I did
one. Well,
not like
that's
that one. That looked really creepy. I did not want to see that.
it was pretty creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Ugh.
it's definitely in the the Truman Show level of, is this really what's going on kind of feel.
That's what I heard about it, but at least the Truman Show, it was they were trying to make it, look like Pleasant Valley Sunday at least.
Yeah, but it was
They
supposed to
weren't
be
trying to make it look
creepy.
demonic.
Well, okay, maybe not demonic, but if you're living a fake life.
Well, eventually he figured it out and he just couldn't take it anymore. That's what's so brilliant about the Truman Show. And I think the Truman Show is a remake of a French film.
Hmm.
Mel might know that, um, but I can't remember the details. Yeah.
So Mel, are you typing this out, or are you dropping in cut paste? She's giving me synopses in the chat. When timid bank clerk Stanley Ipkiss discovers a magical mask containing the spirit of the
It's the
Norse god
mask.
Loki, his entire life changes. While wearing the mask, Ipkiss becomes a supernatural playboy, exuding charm and confidence, which allows him to catch the eye of local nightclub singer Tina Carlisle.
We had the zoot
Unfortunately,
suit.
under the mask's influence, Ipkiss also robs a bank, which a angers junior, I think she's doing cut paste here, which
She is,
angers
yeah.
junior crime lord Dorian Tyrell, whose goons get blamed for the heist. Robert, in contrast, says, compare this to the Shroud of Turin, where Christ's own image blasts through the shroud. Yeah,
Oh, nice.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I just thought of, because I said mentioned that the Truman Show is based on a French film. I thought of another movie, and it isn't about masks per se.
Mm.
It's about somebody taking on another persona to be able to keep his job. And it's actually one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. And I just want to plug it for anybody that wants to see it.
Yeah.
It's called The Closet.
Okay.
Right. So this man is like really sad and depressed, and he's standing on the ledge of his apartment building, and his neighbor says, "Hey, what are you doing over there? Can you come over to help me?" Because he recognizes he's about to jump, right? And so he stops him and he brings him into his apartment. And it turns out he was a psychologist for like a corporate psychologist, right?
Mm.
So he would help you. So he recognized immediately what was going on, and they begin to talk. And he says, "Why? Well, what's going on?" Right? He says, "Well, I'm about to lose my job." He says, "I've lost jobs before because I was gay. It's not like that anymore.
Mm.
If you were gay, it would be like he wasn't trying to recruit him or anything, because it would be really simple because the light bulb goes off. So he pretends he's gay. He's gay, and then they can't
Oh, the
fire him.
closet thing. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So yeah.
So and it's really, I can't do it justice with the description. You just have to take my word for it and watch it. It's one of the funniest things I've ever seen. He works for a condom factory, and that's
Oh
its own
no.
really hilarious. And at one point, I'll give one spoiler. At one point, because everybody's except for one woman in the office, she's like, "He's not gay." Yeah, just like real super suspicious, but everybody else is like, oh no, we can't question him. If he
Oh,
says he
right.
is, he
Yeah.
is, he
If he
is,
is, he
right?
is. Yeah. Yeah.
And so they're so committed to this idea that he's not lying, that they make him ride the company's float in the gay pride
Oh,
parade.
gosh.
And so it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen, was watching him sit there look completely dejected while all this like happy mayhem is going on around him down the street.
Who plays him? Who plays that
I
character?
don't know. I don't.
Mel,
They're
look
all
it up
French
for us,
actors.
please.
It's a French
Oh,
film
it's a
called The
French film.
Closet.
Okay.
Yeah,
The
and
Closet.
the only famous actor's name I know it is Gerard Depardieu, and he plays a secondary character
Mm.
in it. But yeah, it's really funny. But he's pretending to be somebody he's not, to keep his job, which is kind of like, if you're putting on the mask, you're pretending to be somebody you're not, and you're
Right.
acting in ways that you don't act normally. So this is it's an interesting concept for fiction. Like I said, we're writing similar scene right now, but it's been repeated, hasn't it, in a lot of movies? Now that I
Well,
think
that's
about it,
because I mean, with the mask stuff, the improv stuff, it does work. I mean, and
yeah,
that I found this quite creepy, and the usual, I predict everything but don't realize, I was trying to explain on campus this week to someone and saying, like I did predict all of this, when that sightings thing that I did back in 2017 about what Milo and the crisis we were in, and I was like, I predicted everything that we're living through right now, and he's like, you did? And I'm like, yes. I said we were in a religious crisis and it was going to end up in the streets if we did, and I was like, look around us, right?
yeah,
We have nothing but
yeah.
protests and campus, well, on campus, right, continuing protests, continuing debates over the protest, continue, and
Well, it's the new piety, right?
yeah,
For the
yeah.
new secular religion.
Well,
It's
and
you have
also, I mean, a lot of our debates now, it's like we skirt around these sometimes, but the debate about what Christianity is, what Judaism is, what Islam is, I mean, these are all live as well, right? So
mhm.
it's all a real big religious debate, and we're badly, I mean, Bruce Almighty, right? We're badly equipped to deal with the theological questions, and so instead people just end up either, you know, terrified of having the conversation at all because who's going to get offended, or simply not having examined sufficiently well their own convictions, or even
Mhm.
knowing anything about the theology. I mean,
So Bruce Almighty had a sequel called Evan Almighty.
okay.
And in Evan Almighty, Morgan Freeman repeats his role as a god, and he comes and speaks to, oh gosh, I've been really terrible with names tonight. The actor's name that played Michael Scott in The Office, he plays Evan, and he's from the first movie. He's decided to move to Washington D.C. and he's
Mm.
becoming a senator. He was a newscaster. He's become a senator, and God appears to him and says, "I need you to build an ark." Because
Oh,
he's going
right.
to
Okay, that's why Mel was saying it was Noatic, right? It's Noah is
yeah,
Evan Almighty, not Bruce Almighty. Okay.
Right, Evan Almighty, right. So and it's the same kind of questions you just talked about. What do you believe,
Mm-hmm.
right? Do you publicly profess your beliefs, even when it's uncomfortable to do so? Are you going to follow what God tells you to do? If God came down and talked to you in person like he did the patriarchs of old, would you do what he asked, even
Right.
if you look ridiculous? Because a lot of people think we do look ridiculous with, you know, old morality, and you're stuffy, you're prudish, and why do you dress boring, and why don't you party, and the stuff I heard growing up, and yeah,
The
it's
oldest
this,
temptations there are. What are we talking about? It's stuffy and prudish, right? That's the
yeah,
definition of
yeah,
temptation, right?
right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and certainly we're not the first generation. Even in old Christian societies, people probably got mocked for being a little too pious, a little too straight laced. They wouldn't loosen up a little bit, or they wouldn't gossip. They wouldn't participate
Oh,
in things like that.
constantly. Right.
Yeah.
That's the one, I'm reading my colleague Ada Palmer's book on the Renaissance, and so thinking about the Renaissance and stuff. And one of the things that was famous about the Renaissance is the guys that were all right wearing really tight tights so they see their butts.
Oh gosh.
right? And no, seriously, it's like
I
you see in the
don't believe you. It's just
paintings, right?
hilarious.
That's accurate. They had the,
Yeah.
these leggings, and they, they're showing off their butts. And
Yeah. Rowan
the
Atkinson made fun of that really well
yes.
in his costuming. I'm thinking of the codpiece he wore in one of the.
Well, that's a bit later, right? The cod pieces are the next
Yeah.
century, right?
Right.
And there are people at the time like Savonarola famously, shows up in Florence in the 1490s and saying, you got, bonfire of the Vanities. So it's a real thing, which was throw all of your cards and dice and, you know,
Oh, that's a real thing. I didn't
yeah,
know
it's a
that.
real thing, right?
Oh,
It's a burn up the vanities that you have been, titillating yourself with, and they do, and then things turn politically, and everyone gets burned. But it's like the
that's dark.
yeah, that's dark. That's dark. But no, the kids these days have always enjoyed flirty clothes, right? It's not really a new thing.
What I've seen lately isn't flirty though. It's I don't want to go into detail. It's shocking. You know,
Well, I saw a TikTok recently with the caption was like this girl in these short shorts where like, it was like so, or it was like talk about showing off your
no,
body.
seriously, it's hanging out, and I want to find the parents and slap them
Yeah,
because it's not the girl's fault. Their parents are buying them these clothes, and they're taking them out into public and allowing them to walk around like that,
yeah.
and it's a serious problem.
We are here
You
for the
know,
new prudery.
yeah, or just respect. You know,
Right.
yeah, I don't like to go into a lot of detail about this because these are really young women and they really don't know any better.
Mm,
They don't. So I don't like seeing men talking about them on YouTube and accusing
fair.
them of
Yeah.
this and that because it's not fair. Like you said, we're laughing at these men wearing tight pants to show off their butts hundreds of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm sure they got talked down to as well. Say, what are you doing walking around immodestly like that? Because men were supposed to be modest too.
Oh,
Men were
right.
not even
No,
on the.
I was just
Yeah,
confirming that this problem
right.
of
It's not
modesty
new.
recurs. Right.
It does. It
Yeah.
does. It's fairly new. This level of exposure
Mm.
for women and girls in this country, but
I
mhm.
wonder, I've seen this in, costuming for some of the period drama stuff, but there was a fashion in the early 18th, 1800s, early 19th century, the Regency fashion. They had I think that, maybe they were newer fabrics, very, very see-through,
Oh,
and they showed their bosoms.
oh yeah.
I've seen drawings of it, and I've seen it. I mean, so you see, if you saw it on television now, the level of immodesty that they were using these sheer fabrics for, you would think that it was a modern costuming thing, but I actually think it was contemporary. I think it was like,
This
they'd have
this
little
was early.
gauzy stuff over and a push
Yeah,
up, and
it would barely cover everything. Yeah, that I
mhm.
have seen that portrayed in movies. That's Napoleon era,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, right.
So no,
Yeah.
it recurs as a problem.
Yes. Yes, it does. And interestingly enough, this happens during the Napoleonic era where, the church hadn't really been restored to its full rights
Mm,
at the time. They were still, well, I think France is still suffering from this. There's a lot of very religious people in France, and I'm talking about the Christians, not the Muslim imports. There are a lot of very Christian people in France,
hmm.
but I don't know if they're still in the minority in public life, right? I think
Well,
in
they don't
America,
know
it's
because France, it's actually illegal to ask. Right? France has
interesting.
I feel like I've said this before, but it's always worth, reiterating the oh my gosh. Um, that we had a graduate student in anthropology that was studying laïcité, the laicization in
Hmm.
France as a problem of culture. And she did her research at this new cultural center that in fact Pope Benedict opened. He did a talk there for the Collège de Bernardine, and he was talking to the peoples of culture and stuff. And um, one of the interesting things I learned from her project was they have no idea how many people think of themselves as Catholic in France because they can't ask. It's illegal. Like we're so used in our census, right? We've got the social
Oh,
scientists wanting to like tabulate absolutely everything, so we get asked, all sorts of stuff in
yeah.
our the surveys, the like census surveys that Pew or whoever else, the data Census Bureau compiles all the data. They don't know in France because they're not allowed to ask.
Okay, I don't think they should be asking that in the census here either. The census was for apportionment only, and they ask a lot of ridiculous questions. But what I was
But they're not
referring
even
to was,
allowed to ask at all, right? So literally nobody knows.
well,
I saw someone
I don't think
mention,
okay, what's it they? I don't think the government should be asking, but what I mean
okay,
is
but
like
nobody can ask.
self-expression. Self-expression in government, right? Are they allowed to talk about it if they become a public official? I don't know that either. You certainly are here.
Right. No,
People,
and America is very different. And this is
yeah,
the thing.
it is.
France's public policy is laïcité. It's to be leak, right? Lay, like
Place
all
wise.
completely lay,
Yeah.
right? So that there's no church. So yes, I mean, and the thing is, what the student talked about in her thesis was there's a lot of conversation among Catholics in France about what that means, right? How do we be
Mhm.
Catholic? How can we be
Yeah,
Catholic in this context? So it was
yeah.
nice that like the man who helped rebuild with the cathedral admitted later that he is in fact Catholic,
Oh, that was
right?
lovely. That was like he loves Our Lady. That was
Right.
beautiful. I mean, can you imagine being, like somebody like you, right, who's just absolutely in love with the Mother of Christ, and you have an opportunity to rebuild the church dedicated to her. Can you imagine what was going through his heart when that
It
happened,
must
and he
have,
had to keep it to
yeah.
himself? That's amazing. That was amazing.
Well, I mean, it must have. I mean, it's just like he wanted to be able to do it, so that would that silence would be easy because he's just like it's going to be as beautiful as possible. It just has to be. Don't ask. I just know
Oh,
it's got to be
yeah.
beautiful. That would be. I mean, yeah, I have it. I have to do it obviously in a modest way, very modest. I mean, America, we do have religious freedom of sorts that most people don't, right?
Yeah.
Including the power of it's harder. I mean, happily, I realize it's harder to shame us into not being religious than I think it is anywhere else, right? In England, as
It's
far as
funny.
I
My
remember, it's the feeling of either you're never mind prudish, right? It's like you're just dumb. I think in a lot of other the intellectual context is to be secularized and atheist, and so if you admit to
yeah.
it's worse than Bible Belt, here.
Yeah, it's funny when you said we can't be shamed into it. My immediate reaction was anger. It's like, how dare you?
What,
But the
to
thing is,
try to
that
shame me or to try to
she tried to shame me into not publicly professing Christianity. How dare you, right? Because
it's
think
good
about
being
it.
American, right? It's
That's
like
right. Because think about how our country started. Now, I'm not talking about the United States of America. I'm talking about America before the United States was formed. It
right.
was started by people who wanted to be left the hell alone to practice their religion,
Oh yeah.
right? Mostly it was driven by their Christianity. That's why they came here.
Yes. Yes, from
So
England. No, so
from
I
England
actually
and
have a
yeah,
deep
and
conclusion that we're
Ireland.
doing a good job working towards that I have ended up arguing with some people today. Um, that I'm actually feeling very, very happy to be American, but maybe not for the reasons that people imagine. Right? It's like whether Trump and his tariffs and the poor penguins that are, going to have to like fight the man. Um, I think I've flipped back around in the past week to being very, very happy to be American, and we need to explain why. And
Okay.
Not Bruce Almighty, Ace Ventura: Pet Detective 2 is part of it.
Wow, what a segue.
Oh, isn't that great?
Brava.
I'll be here for another. We'll be here for another hour, and you just stick around. We'll play that revelation. Um, Yeah, so Robert is saying earlier in our riff, there's a move by some young ladies to wear men repellent clothing. Yeah, it's like
Oh,
I
that's an overreaction. It's an overcorrection though, and that's really sad.
yeah,
They have a right to be beautiful. They do. and they have a right not to be objectified. I know everybody thinks it's a feminist word, but it's a legitimate one.
Hmm.
We're not objects. They're individual human beings, and they're worthy of respect. And I don't think they know this. That makes me sad.
Well, some of the conversation I was having today was with some men, young men, about like how on earth are we going to get married, right? And I'm like,
Hmm.
my opening joke at this point is, well, ask your parents to arrange it for you, right?
Oh
There,
yeah,
there's some problem of indeed I mean, the young people are complaining about this because they have no
yeah.
clue, right? We've been talking about this in terms of civility and stuff, and our usual my second level of advice is learn to dance because it's very, good
Oh
courtship,
yeah.
right? If you can, and
Girls like to dance.
buy
They do.
flowers, ask her out,
They're like,
learn
yep.
to dance. I mean, it worked in the past for reasons, right?
Yeah.
And but they're
And risk
worried.
risk rejection too.
Sorry.
Risk rejection. It's okay.
That too, but I think, and these guys are in college, right? So they're surrounded by college women, and
Yeah.
that adds another layer of the women are been fed the expectation of certain things,
Mm.
and we ladies of a certain age are here to tell you, it's a lot easier having kids when you're younger. Just
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah. For the women
For the
in
women,
particular.
right?
Yeah.
It's like if
Hmm.
and I've been, the most dangerous thing I've been thinking of the last week or so is the whole pressure on, well, women can do everything men can. Okay, is there anything men can that women can do that men can't?
Yeah. That's the one thing we can do.
Which we
And we can
have
do
been
better.
somehow talked into not wanting as
Right.
a sex, right? And you're just like, why do you want to all be men? Like, I
Hmm.
mean, seriously, there's the problem of, the girl bosses in the movies and such like that. It's like that. I'm very happy with the Jim Carrey movies. It's like he's getting back with his family, and
Yeah.
they need
Right.
his dad, right? He needs to be a good dad, and that's great. And they need the mom, and the the characters get back together with their mother of their children too,
Hmm.
for goodness sake. But okay, if Snow White doesn't need any guy, is there anything
Let's
that
write
makes
a
it
different
special to be a
story.
woman? Is there any
Yeah.
why would all these men want to be women? I don't know. There's nothing we can do, is there?
Right. And is there anything special about being a guy if we have to change the story of Snow White? Right. This is an opportunity for them to do something courageous and brave.
Yeah, it crushes me that that is taken away from them, or that they are
Hmm.
bullied out of believing that that's a good thing, which I think
Yeah.
is more accurate. I mean, most
Yeah.
I like guys, right? So we've been famous for saying so. um,
Yes.
and I like what I see when they want to help you, they want to do good things, they want to strive, they want to have accomplishments, they want to be someone that someone would be
Yes.
proud of to be married to. All of this is brilliant and beautiful,
It is beautiful.
and I hate that they're crushed, you know by the culture into believing that's not a good thing.
Yeah. Well, we need to change the culture then, don't we?
Mm-hmm. Which was somewhat why with the Aurora Borealis, it's like it's a bit a brother's adventure, right? Band of brothers
Yes.
here, the three brother bears and their dangerous friend, the polar bear.
Mm, yeah. Okay. What were you going to say about Ace Ventura?
Oh, I got to build up to that. Okay, penguins, right? All right, so. Had the robot Mel says the robots will worship our baby boxes. Yeah, basically. You're like, what are we gonna
I don't understand that.
I think no, I
What
think
does
it's
that mean?
because it's like by the end of all of this, there's nothing that women do, right? It's like if the only thing women can do is be men, there's literally no reason for women,
Oh, right.
right? It's like seriously, you're really honestly gonna say there is nothing women can do that men can't. Nothing women, right, that there's nothing women can do that men can't, because of course we wouldn't want to distinguish, and of course if you want to be a woman. Why?
Yeah.
Because we just are supposed to do all those things men do. So what difference does it make? We should just be all men. I mean,
It sounds very boring.
the gymnastics that it takes to get to this point is like
Yeah.
is astonishing. I'm not sure I can get a smooth segue there. Let's see.
You did, and I derailed you again. I'm sorry. I'm famous for
Okay,
that.
penguins on the island. All right. So we found them. We didn't know what the island was called. We didn't realize it had McDonald in it, and I don't remember what the first name is. It's a something in McDonald Islands, right? So clearly, our penguins, Ice City on the island, which is where the tariffs are going to land. Um, the penguins trilled. Oh yeah, I got distracted at that point. I could go on for a whole nother hour off of the next word, because I started thinking about the noises that they have the penguins make in Mr. Popper's Penguins, and they do kind of trill. So we got that right. um, Next, you must take an oath. No flotsam from the north has e'er received the guarded things to which we pledge our troth. At which they swore the bears to secrecy. What's past these gates you must guard with your souls. We never babble, cross our hearts, not we. The penguins turned and gestured towards a gate adorned with jewels, the symbols of their faith. It's a jeweled city, guys. Never mind the 7 cities of gold in the American Southwest. We found the jeweled city of the penguins. The bears looked through the ice of the bears looked through the gate of ice and snow into a frozen town top 7 hills. So it's Rome. Identical abodes stood row by row on moss-green streets all paved with chlorophyll. I think we wanted it to be like the Emerald City.
Yeah.
Their walls alight with hues of the rainbow, and icy bricks stone cut as from a mill. We were also thinking of Harbin City, the Harbin Ice City that they make in China.
Yeah, the ice sculptures.
Yeah. Ahead, snow set forth. I am too giddy to read properly. Ahead, snow set to form a giant arch. 2 ancient pillars beckon them to march. Okay, so they march. They go through here's the gate, right? It's all in the picture. Here's the gate, and they go. Here's the procession, going up to the domed city, right? A herald cried, "Barbarians, behold!" Barbarians. They waddle in good order, Ivan mused. Ivan's one of the bears, right? Henry gaped with glee. Look, a dome of gold! Do I see idols? Spencer balked, confused. The panda smiled. I see a light so bold. Ophelis laughed. They're birds with pandas fused. The bears beheld a strange Antarctic vision. The penguins marched by rank in rich procession. The listless penguins led the train with hops, their heads adorned with macaronic crowns. Next came the adelays in fancy frocks, then chin-straps, chests held high, beaks in a frown. The Magellanics marched while strumming harps beside a statue raised on eiderdown. In the rear, in the place most highly honored, the Emperor of Penguins proudly sauntered. So they're in a procession with their...
That's good. We did good.
I loved our Corpus Christi procession.
Yeah.
Or no, maybe it's more like the Feast of the Assumption, right, with the statue.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah.
As they marched, the penguins sang in chorus, "O starry guardian of the ice and sea, we praise you for your loving care of us. You keep away the seals from our city and guard us from the beasts most ferocious. O Lady of the Whales, we beg your mercy. Return to us our gem that has been stolen. We are not safe without our talisman." "A star above the sea?" Ophelis cried. "A stolen gem?" gasped Henry, much intrigued. "Guardian of what?" Spencer asked, wide-eyed. "I'm hungry," Panda moaned, over-fatigued. "A riddle! Who's this lady you describe?" Ivan asked the guards, his interest piqued. The bears jumped up and down in their delight. "Can Lady Orca lead us to the light?" "Answers to your questions no one can give until the mayor says you passed the test. Come with us to the palace traditive. He will examine you for hellish pests." The bears began to grumble at the sieve, but Abner flew ahead to the ice nest. The penguins wended through the city streets. The statue of the orca ringed with sweets. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, so we found the penguins. Here's the treasure. right? And there's jewels and emeralds and well, keep going. I'm not going to tell them all. You got to buy the book.
Yes.
Buy our book.
It was really fun writing
Read the
that.
read. Yes, and I think the pictures are worth the book for sure.
Hmm.
Um,
Oh gosh, yeah, that artwork was fantastic.
yes. Why does Ace Ventura answer the problem? Okay. Why are we having to put tariffs on Penguin Islands?
Obviously, they're sitting on a stash of jewels and gold.
Oh yeah. We found it, right? It's like Emerald City, Lady Orca. It's by the end of it, you'll realize that the Griffin has the crystal eggs, and Indiana Jones, look out, right? Um, yeah. So clearly they're sitting. So yes, but they're sitting on treasure, definitely. Who likes treasure?
Who wants to scoop it up themselves?
Hmm. Who likes treasure? Class.
You looking for answers from the chat?
Well, they're usually a little behind. Mel is talking about AI can't make babies. Oh, are they importing endangered species? I hadn't thought of that. Maybe. I don't think the penguins are endangered, but
Hmm.
the what we've talked about this a lot in the Ark, which is a ship which sails. Who likes gems hidden away on islands? Oh, please, come on. Dragons. Yes, dragon. Maybe dragon ships. Who uses dragon ships? They're all saying dragon pirates. Mel wins.
I was going to say Vikings.
Well, they're pirates too.
They're pirates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the secret to all of this is always, as we've said regularly in the Dragon Common Room for years now, it's spice and pirates, right? And
Yeah.
if you don't understand these things, all you need to do is add the word pirates, translated into more formal economic terms: waterways, shipping
Hmm.
lanes, something. Okay, so I've read a number of accounts, as you do, because we live on the internet, we're surfing around on the internet constantly. It's like the National Review was, who was it? I can't remember whose article it was, right? But the National Review generally is saying the tariff stuff is all stupid and nobody knows what they're doing and this is all chaotic and Trump's team is idiotic. I've had the opinion expressed to me in my own home recently that
Yeah.
it's all nonsensical idiocy. And one thing we could say is, okay, so it's, these are opening moves and there's negotiations going on, and it is nice to hear that, say, for example, Vietnam is in negotiations with us over the tariffs and everything.
Hmm.
It could be that you just slap a nonsense number easily calculated, which is a subtraction between, it's like the difference in our trade or something.
Yeah.
um but and it is hard to see the Penguin Islands as like on a particular shipping lane. Maybe there's something in Antarctica that they need, that you'd have to pass through there. But whenever you're in a situation where you have, oh, I don't know, the British involved, as in fact, the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, right? Which is
Right.
the East India Company. These Penguin Islands are kind of near Australia on the other side. They're sort of south of, down south of India, I
Hmm.
suppose. Apparently there was some tariffs placed on something in the Indian Ocean. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Start connecting the dots between these nonsensical places that are nowhere places and the fact that no matter what, some of the most important properties on the entire globe are little bitty islands.
Hmm.
Like, I don't know, Guam
Hmm.
or Midway, or apparently they're all part of the Hawaiian archipelago, in fact, right? That it moves. This is easier to understand in a more like contained space like the Mediterranean. The great battles of the Mediterranean tend to be over, let's see, Cyprus, Crete, Sicily, and Malta, because
Aids to navigation.
I have not studied what's going on around the Penguin Island, the Antarctic, but those islands in the Mediterranean are incredibly important because of the way the currents and the winds create the kind of shipping routes that you had, particularly before, we're dealing now with engine powered ships, right, rather than sailing ships. When you're with sailing ships, which is, or galleys, I guess, but sailing ships were the easiest, the best use of the wind and the energy available in the antiquity. Um, those islands are at nodes in the current system, wind and currents of the Mediterranean, right? So it's very easy to spend a lot of time going, why exactly do the Ottomans try, seizing the island of Malta from the Knights of St. John? Apparently Mel Gibson's making a movie about this, right?
Yes.
The Siege of Malta.
Hmm.
Giant sieges of no places, right? They're little bitty rocks. What do you need? Because they're like castles in the water.
Hmm.
They're they can that you could, yeah, if you put, I suppose maybe if you put, I guess the Penguin Islands are somehow Australian.
I think they're Australian.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So there's something going on that has to do with shipping lanes. Okay, add spice, which in our time is mineral rights.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what's going on in Antarctica.
Oh, yeah. There's some, yeah. Obviously, it's like if they're trying to seize the Canada stuff is about the northern shipping lanes, the northern shipping route, the polar shipping routes, right? So our polar bear would be, this was all we did this as a, as the quest from North Pole to South Pole, right? North Pole is
Hmm.
at the center, and the South Pole is in paradise. From the here the Ilfilos, our polar bear, is there in the waters that, if you're from Russia or Canada, that's the center of everything, because that you
Hmm.
want to access through those shipping lanes. And that polar circle is obviously, it's absolutely vital for everything. The steel, the airplane routes, the shipping lanes. Trump's not an idiot to want Greenland and Canada, because
No, he's not.
those are shipping routes.
Well, it's not just the shipping routes, but Canada's had a revolving door of immigration for 20, 30 years now, and it's big parts of it are being taken over by China.
Oh yes, Vancouver
That's a
is a
problem.
big problem. Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, that's definitely, but people will look at him and think, why Greenland, right? It's like, that doesn't, there's no, like, immigration coming through Greenland. Why pressure on Greenland? And it will be, what's on the land, and so people think about that, but it's also what sea lanes, those
Right. China is right now
spaces.
creating islands that didn't exist before, and then
See?
claiming the sea around it.
Right.
That's why Greenland. Wise up.
Mhm.
This is
Mhm.
not a nice world.
No, but the thing is, it's the ground, right? The base imagination you have to be in. We've gotten so used to thinking so abstractly about everything in terms of, I realize, like, most people think I think of countries in terms of lists, right? It's a,
Hmm.
it's a name with numbers beside it, right? No, we're on a globe, right? We're on a world of, water and land. And water is the prime transportation route, not
Yep.
air, not satellites, water, right? It's like all of the big
Right.
ship, the tankers, the cargo ships and everything. And if you spend a lot of time, as I have, having been the thing is, I first learned to think about the Mediterranean shipping routes because in graduate school there was a Australian historian of the medieval Mediterranean, and he sat in the pub with his pipe and his mustache. John Pryor, he was brilliant, right? And he's like, he gave this description of the shipping routes in the Mediterranean that blew my mind. I'm like, oh my gosh, you have to be thinking about it's not just like North Africa. The North African coast is very hard to sail along. So if you're going to want
Mm,
to sail in the western part of the Mediterranean, you've got to have control of, guess what, Sicily and Malta, because otherwise
mm,
you get pushed against that North African coast very badly. The reason that Egypt and the Holy Land have the relationship that they do is because of the way the winds move the ships up and down that coast, that you can go very easily from Egypt up, but it's very hard to go back down because of the
interesting.
current the current in the Mediterranean is going counterclockwise, and the winds are
Hmm.
coming from the north, and these create, for sail ships, create very specific sailing routes, which coasts that they can hug next to, which islands they need to have control of in order to get water and supplies and things like that. This controls most of the history of the ancient and medieval world, is control of those
Fascinating.
islands.
That's fascinating. Yeah, the entire bottom of the Mediterranean is our archaeologist's dream. So many ships gone
Oh
down
yeah.
over the thousands of years.
Yeah, but if you don't understand these islands, you don't understand, for example, why Venice held on to Crete with a death grip.
Yeah.
It's because it was so vital to their shipping lanes.
Hmm.
Same with, it's Cyprus, Crete. There's these that there are nodes in these four regions: Cyprus, Crete, Sicily, and um, I guess Malta and the Balearics, right? And then you start realizing that most of um medieval history surrounds is ends up being like, why does Richard the Lionheart stop at Cyprus on his way to the Holy Land and marry Berengaria?
I don't know.
Control of the shipping, right? It's like, this is like, it's like absolutely everything. So the and you can be more precise about this, and John Pryor definitely is. He's a great number of great books, but it's like, so we promised, as we're doing, like, flip your world, right? You're so used to thinking of control of the land as the problem. You got to flip it. The land is anchors to being in control of the sea routes.
Right. This is why New Orleans is such an important city in the United States
Yep.
because it's right at the mouth of the Gulf of Mexico and the Mississippi.
Exactly. Right? These are the
Yeah.
real power points. This is
Hugely
this is why New
important.
York is so important. This is why Los Angeles is so important. They're
San
ports.
Francisco. Yeah, yep. Seattle. They're all port. They're all huge port cities.
They're all huge port cities. Absolutely everything comes in and out of the ports. Nobody wants to live in
Mhm.
flyover country. It's not flyover country. It's, you can't get the ship there.
Yeah, it would be tough.
Chicago is on the lake, right? It's like, these are not, once you
Mhm.
flip the world and you start seeing it from so it's great that it's what Sean Duffy, our transportation secretary, just went to talk to the Merchant Marine Academy, I think. They
Yeah,
put up a big, like, welcome Sean Duffy,
yeah.
right? He's paying attention. And there is this great guy. He has one of the like exploding accounts on X. What is his name? John something. He's a merchant marine captain.
Oh, I don't
All
know. Hmm.
This is the place to look. Flip your world and see the water. Okay, that Penguin Island has some reason to be significant, and it may not be what's on the island. It's just like, it's where it is in the in
Location. Yeah.
right. So, what was I thinking? Scoot up to Mike, please. I've got my, it's like, got my, like, stuff that I'm trying to read. Daydreamer, I'm trying, all right? Ha. Yeah, you want to be my director? It's like, you're you can be my ear. To the mic, Professor Fulton. Okay. Okay, I'm trying, sorry.
That was a
So
good radio voice, by the way.
to
Yeah.
the mic.
Yes.
So anyway, so they go from the North Pole to the South Pole, in our story, and here's the ice wall around them, right, in the map. I forgot where I was riffing off of. Oh yes, the British. Okay, so we've get in your heads that you've got to look at the waterways. I have not been kidding all these times with my joke in the Telegram chat with my pirate sticker, right? We've got to watch the waterways. Okay,
Mhm.
so let's see. This was going to prove why I'm happy to be American. We can do it. Um, the last battle that was fought between over the American Revolution, right?
Hmm.
We think it was in Yorktown, right?
I don't know.
Well, that's the usual way to
Although
say it.
I'm thinking, I'm thinking you're not thinking on actual geographical American land. I
Ooh.
remember this now. I know where you're going with this. I vaguely
The
remember this.
Battle of Cuddalore was fought between the French and
Right.
the British navies on June 20th, 1783. Kathleen Duval, professor of history at the University of North Carolina. Americans and almost, quote, Americans and almost all historians of the United States until just recently focused almost exclusively on the Revolutionary War within the 13 colonies that rebelled against the British. Focus is almost all on Massachusetts and Virginia, she says. But just in the past decade or so, historians have broadened their focus and started to write about the Revolutionary War as being, as you would say, a world war. Duval and others say the two key protagonists of the Revolutionary War, Britain and France, actually fought the final battle. And some of this is because of transportation times. So they didn't know that, the truce has been signed at Yorktown and it's over, right? So they're still fighting
Mhm.
because they're in India,
Yeah.
right? Britain and France actually fought the final battle of the conflict in Cuddalore, India in June of 1783. France's help for the United States, she says, has long been part of Americans' knowledge of the American Revolution. But the French king decided to enter the war because of France's opposition to Britain more than any love for the Americans.
Of
After all,
course.
he was a king with his own empire. Okay, so
Yeah.
France and Britain. So they end up fighting the last battle between the French and the British over the American colonies in India. Because that's what actually mattered to the British, not us, right?
Yeah.
And it's,
Yeah.
so it's saying that
Raw material farm.
they didn't care about the American colonies nearly as
Mhm.
much as they cared about. And I was trying to explain this to someone today. Um, this is Glickstein who's talking about that. Somebody else. Well, another. This is a CNN article, so it's true. Uh, not some conspiracy theory thing, right? This is okay.
Okay.
So I'll put this in my channel, or we'll put it in the newsletter so you can find it. Okay. Still, few would dispute the defeat at Yorktown had Britain looking to cut its losses. Peace negotiations began in Paris that would lead to the signing of a preliminary peace deal between the colonies and Britain in late November of 1782. News, however, traveled at the speed of sailing ships to the far reaches of the empires of the main combatants, Britain and France. After Yorktown, the fighting between Britain and France and Spain continued elsewhere in places like Jamaica, Gibraltar, and India. Near where these Penguin Islands, okay, or at least closer to India than
Yeah.
we are, right? Speaking to CNN from his home in Seattle, Professor Glickstein, I guess, argues that controlling India was a much bigger prize for Britain than controlling portions of North America. British colonizers coveted its resources like silk, cotton, textiles, spices, tea, opium, and precious stones. Remember, the penguins have the stone. No, whatever. Historians point out that the British plundering of Indian wealth during the colonial years turned India's economy from a near peer of Europe to something exponentially smaller.
Mhm.
Those H-1B visas are going the wrong direction, you guys. Everything that India made, the Brits wanted, Glickstein said, adding that India's strategic location meant it was a base from where Britain could protect its trade routes to the Asia Pacific. Britain, and to a lesser extent France, were well established with colonies in India when the American Revolution began and had already brought their hostilities from Europe to the subcontinent. When France entered the war in 1778 as an American ally, the British East India Company, same ones in the Pirates of the Caribbean, immediately moved to attack France's Indian colonies, drawing both countries' Indian allies into the fight. So the garrison of the French and its Indian allies at Cuddalore on the Bay of Bengal was an important target for Britain in late June of 1783. The last battle of the American Revolution was fought in India, over access to India
Not by Americans, by the French,
by the French.
who were allied with us because we were a wedge against the British. The only reason the British didn't want to give up their American colonies, well, it is resources for them, raw materials, but I think it was pride because they were being rejected by their own.
I don't think they cared. I think they tried, and this is the next layer. And Avita talked about this on her stream this past week. Um, the British just figured they'd get us some other way. They tried with the South to continue using the South as a source for their cotton for their textile industry, which is also what they did to India. Right?
Hmm.
They turned India into a raw material. India had been a producing country, had been an industrial region at that level of the 18th century, and Britain transformed it into raw material source and
Right.
tried to use our South the same way, right?
Yeah.
Our cotton plantations were supplying cotton to Britain. The tariff war goes back to Britain wanting to keep this American South supplying its raw materials, and so Britain started our Civil War.
Right. But sure, they gave up their slaves before we did this, or more, they are morally superior.
Oh
Right.
yeah, but they wanted us to keep the slaves because they were using the cheap cotton.
That's right. No hypocrisy there.
So, with these things in mind, shipping lanes, control of access, control of spices and such. Exactly how is Jim Carrey yet again in the most virtuous movie I've seen since the Pirates of the Caribbean?
I can't take that phrase seriously when thinking about the rhinoceros birth scene.
Oh my
So
gosh! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh, yes. Oh, and what's hilarious is like the way the setup is he's in the robot rhinoceros, right? That gets too hot and so he takes off all his clothes so he's naked. And then he's trying to
yeah,
get out. The only way he can get out is through the back.
he's in front of a couple of tourists, a
Like,
group of
oh look, honey,
tourists,
the rhinoceros is giving
a
birth.
miracle of birth.
So you've seen the movie, right? Or
I
you've just
have,
seen that
yeah.
scene. Okay.
No, I've seen the whole movie.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
for
I
a
mean,
while.
Bruce having failed to save the raccoon in the confusing Andean, not Andean, Alpine rescue scene, right? Ends up in Tibet. Who then that's pretty funny when they're like, oh, good, he's leaving. Oh, I've never seen
Yeah,
the monks so distraught. They
yeah, I remember
oh
that
my
too.
gosh. Okay, so he's there in his animal retreat, and the agent guy comes to bring him and say, "We need you, right? We need you in at the consulate." Yes. And it's like, okay. So he goes to the consulate. He's the consulate is of course a British consulate somewhere in Africa. This is actually
Yeah,
topical for the new venture that Milo just went on.
yeah,
Helping
strange.
Congo, right? Okay,
Yeah,
so let's beware, right? It's a Brit involved. Okay, so they go to the consulate and they say the problem. What's the problem, right? Do I need to narrate all this, or no? I need to. I will narrate it all. But do you know some of this? The
it's
remember
been
the
a long
story?
time since
Okay,
I've
you
seen the
remember
movie,
the
so I don't remember
rhinoceros birth
specifics.
scene?
How could you forget that? Yeah.
Clearly, that's blotted out all the rest of the
Yeah,
actual
look,
plot. The actual plot in the movie, which is okay. So there's
yeah.
so there's two tribes, right? One the friendly dancing tribe, and one the terrifying death mask skeletal war paint tribe. Um,
Mm,
and the friendly tribe in red fabric. I mean, so this is all I remember: the red fabric and the white paint. So we'll go with that. So the red tribe, um, with the beautiful princess, has a sacred bat, right?
right.
And well, which is funny because so
I gotta watch this again now, I'm remembering it.
it's
Yeah,
okay. I'm gonna make it sound way better than it is, but the thing is, I think it is actually.
it's
It's like
well
Pirates of the
done.
Caribbean. Like you're going, oh my gosh, what did they just show us? Oh, really? They did. Oh, wow. Okay, okie dokie. This is up there with the third Beverly Hills Cop movie being set in L.A. about a series of tunnels under a theme park being used to do nefarious things with a
Whoa.
yeah. No, I'm like they've been saying it in the movies all along. Seriously. the tunnels under the theme park to it's a counterfeiting. And that one, it's a counterfeiting scam. But there's something strange about the way the bad guy, he's also like the patron of this orphanage, and so he likes having all the boys around and stuff. And you're going,
Oh,
oh my,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
tunnels and young kids, what?
Dark.
Right? It's in the
Yeah.
movies. It's all in the movies. They're all talking about it all the time. Now, whether that's revelation of the method and blob, right? Okay, so here's in Ace Ventura. So there's the two tribes. They have the sacred bat. The one has the sacred bat, and the prince of the white paint tribe is going to marry the princess of the red cloth tribe, but they can't do it without the sacred bat, right? And the bat is the bat. Bruce doesn't. Bruce Ace doesn't like the bat, right? So he gets to be like all squirmy and everything about thinking about the bats. And
It's the one animal he doesn't like, right?
it's the only animal he doesn't like. And the first thing they do is take him to the consulate, where he meets Simon Callow playing the consul, right? The British consul, who's, all being snooty about his polo pony, and Ace tries to do this sort of Sherlock Holmes like, oh, I know what you've been up to. You've got this, white paint on your boot, and somewhere where you fell and you were clearly a construction site or something like that. And Simon Callow sort of, okay, fine, and shows Ace Ventura his trophy room, right, which creates the
Yeah.
horror about your room of death, right. The animals get their own back, so don't worry. But anyway, so we're establishing Simon Callow as both nefarious, but also he's asked Ace Ventura in to help find the bat, because they need the bat, and without the bat, the two tribes will go to war. I think that's all the pieces that you need.
Yeah.
Okay, so you need the sacred bat. The bat's been taken. Without the bat, the tribes are going to go to war, right? So
Right.
Ace first goes to the red tribe, and they explain to him about the bat. He falls in love with the princess, of course, and I make
Love.
sure.
Okay.
Well, it's hard to say.
It's really not.
She has nice boobs, okay, which we don't see. It's a
Oh,
family movie. It does matter. It's like you realize all of the steps matter so that you get the reveal. This is going to be spoiler alert, guys. So there you go. Oh, right. That when they're nursing him after he's been run over or something like that, I forget. It turns out that all of their um bowls and plates and stuff are made out of bat poo, right? It's guano,
yeah.
which then becomes entertaining because he gets to spit and gross and everything like that. But in fact, so that they make all their stuff out of the bat guano from the cave, which
Hmm.
he goes into and then gets frightened of and runs away and stuff. Anyway, he then somehow ends up with the other tribe, has to wrestle with the guy. That's strange. Blah 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 blah. The bat's still not found. Oh yes, and then he ends up being finding out that it's the Australians who've stolen the bat. Aha.
Oh,
The Australian outback, I don't know what they'd be rednecks in America, right?
yeah.
What do you call them in Australia? Chat.
I don't know.
Oh, I
I
love
don't
you
know.
too, Daydreamer. Thank you. Um, Robert's saying, I feel like we don't really interact on the sea on the sea people doing all this. They must be all around us. Weird. Well, okay, so the sea is happening all the time
Yeah.
around us. The ships are
Constantly.
out there, right? We, oblivious in the land, just don't pay attention to the ships, which are everything, right? It's like all that stuff that's coming from China. It's not it's on ships that unload in Los Angeles, right?
Mhm.
We saw that when when was it when all the ships were waiting outside the harbor because they couldn't unload during COVID?
Oh, that was a strike going on
Yeah,
in California. Yeah.
right. So
And yeah, it happened around 2021, I think, or 20, something
yeah,
like that.
right.
Yeah,
And
they were
then
backing up.
everything comes off those containers, including the bad stuff, right? The Vancouver stuff going through Vancouver.
Which was an eye opener for a lot of people. Why aren't we making the stuff here? It's
Yeah,
a valid question.
right. Okay, so the ships and they're coming in the ports. Okay, so we established that the Australians are the bad guys. Well, not really. And by this time, finally, I don't remember exactly how Ace figures it out, but he goes back to the consul and he says, "You know what? I get it now. That wasn't like plaster on your foot. That was guano." Because here it is, guys. Drum roll. You've watched the whole movie. You've watched Jim Carrey being birthed by a rhinoceros. You watched him crush. I mean, the elephant's sitting on the truck on the but command. He's able to talk to the animals. The elephant keeps crushing the fancy cars and stuff like that. It's Simon Callow all along, who's of course the Brit, right? The consul set all this up. He got the Australia guys. Watch out! The Brits use you to steal the bat. They have the bat. The Australians have stolen the bat because Simon Callow, the consul. Are you ready? Are you ready for this? Are you ready for it? Are we ready for it now? Wants the tribes to go to war.
No. That's nothing like anything we see in real life in history.
Never. The British did it. Right?
Yeah.
They have
Puppet
been
master.
practicing setting people up on fake sides to fight so they get the batshit. Right, and that's what he explains that. It's like, and he's sitting there playing chess, which then the continuity error, the chess set magically disappears or something. I don't know what happened there, but he's sitting there playing chess, and you realize that this is the story, right? This is constantly the story we're in, and
Yeah.
somehow one way or the other you create the situation, which then gets both sides fighting. They kill each other off, and you get the guano. Because they need the guano for fertilizer, right? It's actually, I don't think there's any guano on the penguin. I mean, maybe all that penguin's pee in the glacier matters. Who knows, right? But the sensation of finding yourself on these fake sides that you are then egged on to, murder half your population over. Who would do that?
Yeah. People who like money.
I'm so sad. Right, it's like, and obviously, the more it's like, if I can read history fast enough to catch up with finding all of these, like, okay, one, I knew about the shipping lanes from graduate school and to look for that and paying attention to that. The Pirates of the Caribbean with the East India Company as the like the nations have to rise up against this multinational corporation because guess what? It's the British again. Sorry guys. Guess who? Okay, this is my big wow. Okay, guess who all of the people in the United States still are? Consider it describing it this way. What's free trade? Yeah, batshit crazy. It's real. Oh, Robert says he's in Vancouver. Okay. Outbackers. Okay. Rednecks, outbackers. Right. They're outbackers. They're definitely the crocodile didn't need guys. Only in the Ace Ventura version, they're willing to be employed by the consul to do their dirty work, to do his dirty work, which is
You mean like
start a
Britain always
war.
sends Australians over to fight their wars?
Apparently that happened in Gallipoli, apparently.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it happened in every war they were in.
Oh my goodness. Right. It's like you start paying attention to what can you do with lots and lots and lots of money, which the British have after they take over the Dutch Sea Empire, right? Which we know they do in 1688 with the Glorious Revolution. So
Yeah.
the Glorious Revolution is, it's the end point of all of the, the people coming to they're not the United States, coming to North America, fleeing from the Civil War there. With the 1688 and the Glorious Revolution, my ancestors all have to come over because the Dutch are partly here already, but actually they're all already here. But all of the Scots-Irish that come over are fleeing from that original thing, right? The Union in 1707 means that you have all the Scots-Irish come over, end up in being our rednecks, right, in Appalachia, who have been drowned and hurricaned and stuff like that recently over maybe something, right? Okay, so refugees from the British, the free trade, one of the free trade's first accomplishments is the Irish famine. So all in 1840, it's like big, the Economist is the free trade journal, right? And one of the things that they're founded over is the debate over the corn laws, which is the tariffs on wheat. The wheat from Ireland is sent out from Ireland by the English landlords, and the Irish starve,
Yeah.
so they come
But
here.
they also confiscated food that had been sent there and sold it on the market
One
that
way or
had
the
been sent
other,
there
free trade,
illegally,
right?
starving.
Who
Yeah.
does the free trade benefit?
The British.
So the Irish all come over here. Now, I've also been reading the same guy wrote the article about how the British are behind the Confederacy's willingness to go to war over the Confederacy wants to continue sending its cotton to Britain. The British want to prevent the southern states from sending the cotton to the north, which is industrializing and wants to use that cotton for its own purposes, right? And
Mhm.
this also helps the British if they can carve up what had been the United States. Apparently, James Buchanan says I am the last U.S. president. I think I'm actually related to Buchanan. I think he was a
Hmm.
cousin of somebody or other, right? And now he suddenly
Mhm.
has a place in my repertoire of, oh my gosh, I was related to him too. Um, that the United States has only been an entity for what 80 years, right? And the European powers are still interested in carving it back up, right?
Yeah.
The French and Spanish and English, who are we here in the United States? Where they just parcel it up again and turn them back into producing, raw materials. Um, uh, this Richard Poe, who did that article about the British affecting our American Civil War, has argued that they're also doing the same thing in the First World War and with the Russian Revolution, particularly because the British are so worried about Russia gaining, oh, guess what, a port, thus
Mm.
the Crimean War.
Still are. Yeah.
Right? The Crimean War, mid
Yeah.
19th century, still about the British keeping the Russians from having a port. Tsar Nicholas II is Edward VII's cousin. It's another cousin
Mhm.
war that is, the Russian, they're British agents involved in the Bolshevik Revolution that destroys the Russian Empire and turns it into the
Mm.
Soviet Union. Um, I'm starting to wonder whether the revolutions of 1848 have significant British effect behind them because, of course, Marx has been writing all of his stuff sitting in the British Library. Guess what? Guess what? Guess what? Ingalls wrote his condition of the working class in England while having been in Manchester. Oh my gosh! Look, absolutely everywhere in 1848 has a revolution. Guess what? Except for England or Britain, right? Why do we have so many
Yeah.
Germans in the United States?
How many? So many what?
Germans in the United States,
Because
including
we're under
my
constant threat of war.
ancestors.
So
No, they come
they're always
over after
fleeing.
1848. It's a lot. There's a
Well, the
lot of
second wave, yeah.
there's a big German wave of, yeah. There's the Hessians that are in the mercenary troops, but
Well,
there's
the Anabaptists came before then, but yeah,
right
there's
a big wave, including some of my ancestors I know from the Palatinate, the Rhineland Palatinate, come around 1848, around the, oh my God, if the British were involved in triggering all the post-Napoleonic crises, good for them. Well played. They did India too.
hmm.
I know, like, by the end of it,
And
it's like
they
free
had one
trade has
monarch
been
through it
a
all.
British psyop the whole time. And guess what? The United States, like, they're our worst enemy.
They had one monarch throughout that entire period too.
Victoria.
And yeah, if they had not, I wonder if things had been different.
Well, their queens are really good at this, right? Elizabeth the
Hmm.
First and the Armada, Victoria, and of course, they spend that entire century gleeful over Waterloo, right? So they've defeated
Yeah.
Napoleon, and like Patrick O'Brien, more sea stories, right? It's like the British Navy is it, right? It is it.
Hmm.
Everybody's watching Master and Commander right now, and like great movie.
I haven't
Patrick
seen
O'Brien.
that yet. I really want to see
The
it.
books are even better. The books are amazing, right?
Hmm.
If you really want to feel the power of the sea, he
Hmm.
and I bet they'd go to Penguin Island too. Um,
That would be interesting. Somebody scour
they
their
do have
copies.
some. They're still. This is obviously before the Suez Canal, right? So they have to do all of the travel
Mm.
back down back down south, right? Down to
Hmm.
the Antarctic, right? They spend a lot more time in the Antarctic than we remember because that's the route to
Yes.
Asia.
Well, it's similar to having to go around South America before the Panama Canal. Same
Right.
thing. Except
Yeah.
I think South Africa, the going around the Horn of Africa is more dangerous, I think. I could be wrong about that. Just the weather.
Well, this is I haven't I've been busy doing other stuff this week, so I haven't looked at where the Penguin Island is and the shipping routes. But we have been, you know, this is by the end of it, I was like proud to be an American. Still need to learn to sing that right. Recognizing that maybe the United States had a point.
Breaking off of Britain.
Yeah.
They did. They. I mean, I've said this before. I didn't come up with this idea, obviously. I'm no historian, but yeah, they were just using us for raw materials and
Hmm.
didn't want us. Didn't want anybody building a manufacturing base. Which guess what? We don't have right now, and Trump's trying to build it back up because we had
Funny
a
that.
fantastic one. Yeah, we had a fantastic one, and we can't have it again. His first time he became president, his first term, he ran on this platform of bringing manufacturing back to the United States, and I didn't think he had a chance of doing that. I
Mm,
said, nobody's going to close up a factory where it's cheap in Asia and open it up here, or Mexico and open it. It's just not going to happen. It happened immediately,
mm,
and it's happening again. It's happening again. So people want to open factories here. They want to build things here,
that's good.
and the only thing stopping it is the lack of incentive, because it's cheaper if I can save a penny per widget in another country,
Mm,
even with all of the shipping and transshipping that I have to go through, it's worth it. But if I don't have to do any of that stuff, right? If you're going to have tariffs on it, because it came from another country, then I save no money keeping it
right.
open over there. So of course I'm going to open it up here. I was very surprised at how quickly that happened,
Mm.
but it does happen. And people saying, I think everything's going to be more expensive. Not if you buy it here, make it here.
Well, this is, I think, so the turning the world upside down feeling is, we've had to do this over and over and over again. I mean, the number of times, maybe, for us personally, some of the things that people are having to re-examine, like the vaccine stuff, has been hard, right? Because they're having to flip their entire worldview. Um,
Well, they don't want to believe somebody would do something that evil, and it is evil.
well, I don't
Let's
want to
not mince
believe the
words.
British are this.
Not all of them were, I mean,
Well,
I had heard Queen Victoria herself was trying to send aid to Ireland during the famine.
mhm.
People were starving.
Well, the
I
problem with
mean,
free trade is it came out of the desire, that particular economic desire to have the British be in control of all the shipping. And the access to stuff, free trade was one way, theirs.
so what was in it for America during NAFTA?
So this okay, so where more soberly where it is I was having this argument with some students who are in our finance program, right? And they weren't happy with this particular position. I'm like, well, I'm sorry. I keep reading history and I find these things that I didn't expect. Um,
Yeah.
so and I've read enough around Deirdre McCloskey's, rethinking of econ, which is an interesting problem. It's like one of the big debates in economics, right, is they don't know, right? I mean, I'm not, if you get so, and in history too, we get, if you get used to seeing it from one perspective, like just from the land to the sea flip is hard enough, right? But you don't want to find out, Hans, are we the baddies?
Yeah.
And to find out that free trade, not just that it has the effects that Vox has been talking about of labor movement, right, so that you end up with no
Hmm.
communities, but that
Yeah.
if
That
it
was
in fact was
devastating.
always in fact a weapon of domination,
Yeah.
that the main the British were in control of the seas for rule Britannia, and they aggressively pursued it, including things like the Opium War, which we've acknowledged that China
Or were
remembers.
or were transnationals in charge of Britain and using it, like the East India Company? Whatever happened to them anyway?
um they shut down. I mean, would well, India, empire. That's when Victoria becomes empire, empress, when the
Yeah.
government takes over what had been the East India Company in 1859. And
But
Jane
what
and
happened to the actual company? All of their ships and all the people that
well,
that
Mill had been
were in
working in
charge of
their
it.
office. John Stuart Mill, the famous On Liberty, had been working in their
Mm.
offices for 20 years, and that job is gone after the empire takes over. So I think it becomes the civil service.
Hmm.
Yeah, I would have
I'm
to.
skeptical. I'll have
I'm
to read
starting
more
to
about
buy
it.
more books. You know that I've already ordered one. Um,
Yeah, I know. Or just one?
so no, in terms of the villains here, right? It's like, okay, so in sort of charity, people can think they're doing good things and it has unintended consequences. Fair enough,
They
right?
can.
Right.
Yeah.
And
And
we're
some people are just
hoping,
abjectly evil.
we keep hoping that, Trump is doing things for good reasons, not just
Hmm.
nefarious power reasons. Um, People doubt him and think he's just, crazy. Whose power is it, right? I think I this is these are fair questions. I did my I guess my one, the Penguin Island may be more important than we realize, and two, free trade has effects that we need to acknowledge, is a big enough
Mm.
leap right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so Robert's saying they go to Galapagos. In the Canadian Confederacy, the Quebecois Laurentian banking class siphon the resources of the West to design a system for themselves. Yes, I mean clearly,
Mm.
you know, the capture of the resources is a theme, a continuing theme. They go to Galapagos. I'm not what goes to Galapagos, the people or the money. Penguin Islands are a string northeast of Cape Town along coast of Namibia. Okay, we're just talking about the penguins, the ones we can't remember, the McDonald something islands that everybody's making fun of being part of the tariff list.
It's oil.
You think there's oil there? You think it's oil
I think it's
rigs?
oil in the ocean. Yeah.
Oh, so platform like staging places
As soon
for
as you
the.
said Namibia, right, because I think there's oil associated with that area.
It's the batshit somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somewhere.
And
Hmm.
it'll be things like that. That's in the joke in the movie is, they're making stuff out of this batshit. I don't know whether you can make pottery out of batshit, but that,
Sure you can. It's just mud, right?
the resources that are incredibly valuable for industrial production, like in the Congo, right? It's the cobalt now.
Yeah.
So in the Heart of Darkness, it's the rubber and the ivory is being
Hmm.
used to make piano keys. Um,
Right.
our cobalt's being used to make stuff we're talking on right now, right? All the
Right.
electronic devices. So we are in these. Here's our world with the griffin over it. We want the griffin,
Mm.
the griffin ruling the world, being Christ, right? But the there all of these things work together in this system. But if you're not looking at if you're doing the face vase on it, right, the optical illusion, and you're only seeing the faces and you're not seeing the vase, you're
Mm.
not going to see why the sacred bat was stolen by the Australians so that the British consul could get the two tribes fighting so that he could take the bat shit.
That's quite a metaphor they put together in that movie.
Isn't it amazing? And you thought it was just
Yeah,
this gross scene when he's birthed by a rhino.
it's hilarious, but it is, yeah, it's gross.
It's very gross.
Oh
It's
gosh.
so intensely. Yes, the Master and Commander, they go to Galapagos. But that's in Master and Commander, they actually blend a bunch of the books. There's different stories that they put together. Post Captain is my favorite of the series, and I can't quite remember why, but I think I liked it. It has some of the nicest scenes that I enjoyed in it.
Mhm.
The Patrick O'Brien stuff is really worth reading. But we promised we'd flip your world. Have we succeeded? What, you waiting? Are we waiting for them to answer? They never
Waiting for
answer
them
in
to
they never
answer.
they never answer in real time because who knows? I'm not sure what the lag is. So I ask a question and like some minutes later they've dutifully answered in what for them is real time, and for me I'm like,
Yeah.
I've moved on. The Galapagos, the never mind Hawaii being fed by a series of volcanoes. Rachel keeps talking. Right.
Wasn't Darwin's Origin of the Species written in 1848? The same time Marx and Engels were writing in London?
He publishes later than that. More like
Okay.
1859.
50 something? Okay.
I
Hmm.
mean, he goes to the Galapagos for his part
He
of the
does.
legal tour, right? Yeah. Right. So we flipped the world. Here we are. Remember the Penguin Island. And it's up there at the, you know, the peak of everything that we've been trying to understand.
We called it.
We called we called it. We
Again.
did. We did. Why isn't everyone watching us? We're years ahead. Years and years and years. This book came out. We made this this book came out. Okay, so some will say like,
Four
oh, there
years
have been
ago.
penguin stories and Jim Carrey with his Popper's penguins. Right. But this book, our book of the, you know, the search for Antarctica, which we were to some extent inspired by Owen's obsession with, 2021. We
Wow.
knew it, you had to look to Antarctica.
Now I'm going to look through what we're writing now to see what I'm going to be thinking about in 4 years. See what I'm going to be seeing in real time. Ooh.
Well, we certainly, I mean, all the stuff we did in the market, and now I'm thinking this is like, so the part that we're writing now is set in the 17th century when all of this stuff is happening, right? When
Yes.
the Dutch East India Company is at its peak in the 17th century. By the end of the century, the British have taken over that Dutch control,
Mm-hmm.
somewhat, well, somewhat through William and Mary and somewhat through the Anglo-Dutch Wars. You know, the what I did after I ended up in this argument and realized I needed more buttressing, than I saw it on a video on YouTube, which I did, right? I know that the British ruined the Indian economy in this, and I think in a similar way they were willing to ruin the Confederacy's economy by way of pretending to support it or something like that. We'll take your raw materials and blah blah blah. That, you know, it's, you know, the plantation owners win and everybody else loses. The systems,
Yeah.
it regularly creates slavery,
Mm-hmm.
whether, you know, the, you know, Asian factories now, or why, you know, you put the profit just means you move your factory to some place where people will work for free, which is
Yeah.
slavery,
Or forced.
right?
Right.
and and
Yes.
the, and
Made with pride by prison labor. Yeah.
and that, you know, that Ace Ventura pointing out, it's like, you know, you end up in these wars and you're just going, why are we fighting? Because the bat's gone.
Because the bat's gone.
World flipped. Okay, the daydreamer is confirmed. We've succeeded. We've flipped the world, and hopefully, I stayed close enough to the mic this time that you all are
Mm-hmm.
able to follow every thread. Every thread has been followed. So, anybody who's new listening to these videos, we have a newsletter which will go out tomorrow. If you subscribe to the newsletter, we give you more links and references and updates, and it, you know, a proper reference system for following the deep historical threads, ocean currents that we are tracking on the
Ooh,
Mosaic
currents.
Arc.
That's
The
good.
currents, the
Nicely
ocean
done.
currents that we on the Mosaic Arc are knowledgeable of, including the penguins. Thanks everyone for joining us. Good night.